Applause. A sound we are all familiar with. But what are we cheering for? The actors, of course. What else? Design. Lights, sounds, the set, costumes, makeup, movement, and organization. Art. Theater is a collaboration of designers and actors along with the meticulous vision of a director. Over the course of a year at a college in Arkansas, students will design, rehearse, and build to bring a play to life.
Let's just go.
So sound can we be in Q7, or does that need to be actually called?
It does not. I can just play it. You guys can fade it, whatever. So here we go. Here's Q7.
Every play starts with a script. In this case, Eurydice by Sarah Rule. The play is a modern retelling of the Greek myth Orpheus from the perspective of his wife, Eurydice. Eurydice dies on her wedding day and goes to the underworld where she's reunited with her father, who tries to help her regain her memory.
Orpheus was a great musician.
The stones, who are reminiscent of a Greek chorus, try to stop them but fail.
Make it real nice here so people want to stick around.
Orpheus makes a deal with the Lord of the Underworld to be reunited with Eurydice.
Is that him?
She's then faced with a decision, to go back to the land of the living with her husband or stay with her father. Orpheus breaks the deal and causes Eurydice to die a second death.
You startled me!
The first people that you bring into the process are usually the designers.
It's the director's vision that I'm trying to help bring to life on stage.
With Eurydice, the way that she's written it, it's really a poem, and it's a poem that's kind of open to the imagination of the design team.
Kind of the first thing she said to me was that she didn't want the underworld to feel dark and dingy and depressing.
I would get started.
So like really, for most designers, it all starts with the script.
Usually it's 3 times, once just to know what the play is, once for atmosphere, and once for the brass tacks, the actual what we have to have.
It was those conversations with the designers that really created that world.
After meeting with the director many times and going through several different versions, the designers work independently to realize their final designs.
After she, finds out what she likes and I get all of it set, I'll render it and then make a model out of it. So it's interesting because then you see it in person without seeing it full size, and that way I can sit there with the director or my mentor, and we can be like, well, maybe that's not quite the size you wanted it.
I've always worked on very realistic and box sets, and I've never done a show that is not natural like Eurydice is.
Which it's kind of modeled off of 3 different train stations, like Grand Central.
He drafted all in 3D. I would grab his floor plan and I could actually fly over it and have it in real kind of space. It's a lot of just figuring out what I like, putting instruments in. It's a lot of just importing symbols. My designing is theoretical. They have to trust me, and I have to trust myself and trust the drafting and trust the programs I'm using. So it's just taking his ground plan, putting in focus points, making sure the entire stage is covered with the beams, and then hoping that it works the way you want it to.
So I'm just kind of in the preliminary steps for sound design stuff. I've kind of penciled in most of the sound effects that I want to use in my script. And so we went with kind of this stylized, low bass sub sort of world for the underworld. And so everything has actually a lot of synth tones and other stuff like that. With a show that's kind of stylized like Eurydice, It's difficult to like pick and make sure that that style kind of sticks. You don't want to go too terribly far that it's distracting and there's sounds happening all the time, but there's definitely like a magic and surprise to the worlds. And then from there you move on to actually pulling the sound cues or creating them and editing them and then getting them into our sound system over here.
Before the actors start rehearsal, the costume designer schedules times for the actors to try on costumes.
Did we want to do the all-in-one under the swimsuit or no?
Yes.
The all-in-one. Would have boobs are not quite big enough.
Okay, either one of them?
Sometimes we just try things on actors to see what we want.
Her design has to be flexible, as sometimes costumes don't fit or accessories don't work.
Opinions on the crown? Sometimes we just don't know.
What is she a queen? Is she a princess?
The actor can't really become that character without a costume, in my opinion.
How do I feel?
The costume designer then makes fixes and calls the actors back for one more fitting. If the costume works, she takes a photo.
Really rough, really quick sketches.
Crazy. You can do it for a billion.
The designers present their ideas to the cast to help them understand the director's vision, as well as some of the practical elements that they will be interacting with during the show.
Yeah, we're going to start with MJ, so we all don't get comfortable and then have to move and then come back. That's cool.
Sure.
Right.
Upstairs, the actors get a more comprehensive look as to what their costumes and makeup will look like.
The beach, fun and flirty. At the wedding, I wanted it to feel almost like a girl getting married as opposed to a woman.
I don't have any renderings yet because that's how makeup works.
The makeup designer explains some of the ideas she has for the stones and their more complicated makeup.
What I'm most excited about. I'm not gonna lie about it. Working on some fun techniques. We're gonna see if I can get kind of like a chipped, plastery paint kind of effect. I just need to find a way to make that rigid and not look like peeling skin. A lot of contouring to make your faces look chiseled and hard and rock-like.
Some things fell off due to the weather today.
The set designer shows the actors some of the key locations they need to know for blocking, using the model for reference.
Inspired by British lighting design, which is a little
The lighting designer talks through some of her ideas, and the sound designer plays back some effects and music that will be used throughout the play.
Here's an example, a rough draft of some of the rusty pipes. So you have the element of dripping water, but then you also have the cello element kind of going along top of it.
Let's just jump in and hear these words out loud.
As the designers make their final decisions, the director, actors, and stage management team get together to read the play out loud for the first time.
If I were to give a speech at your wedding, I would...
I think that you're expecting everyone that's working on it to have read it and to have spent as much time with it as they possibly can.
I had heard that this was a very personal story on Sarah's part, and so I started doing some research on that.
As a director, you've read it an unnecessary amount of times, a lot of times.
Stars too. Orpheus nods.
Well, stage manager is kind of like the facilitator of rehearsals, and that's how everything starts out, as in rehearsal.
What's your name?
But the stage manager does kind of behind the scenes stuff, such as taking the time, making sure that everybody's getting adequate breaks, writing down actors' blocking, where they move on stage, tracking props that we use in the show, noting where they come on stage, where they go off stage. And then for this show I had an ASM, which is an assistant stage manager, Lauren Brady.
Oh, why didn't you say so before?
You blushed at such a hurt.
For my father.
And so between the two of us, we get all those jobs done.
I read a book today.
Did you?
Each of the actors has also begun to assert certain things.
Don't you want to know what it was about?
I read the show, I think, upwards of like 10 times. I read it a lot, really trying to get inside the head of the character. It's hard to do prep work before a first read through because you don't know the director's vision for the character, what they're really wanting.
Very
Orpheus, are
With
we?
a table reading where you all get around the table for the first time and you're listening to the words.
Just kidding. I was thinking about you.
And they're not just in your head anymore, they're not all in your voice. You begin to understand the access point that everyone else is attacking the play with.
Renewal and revival and like coming up to be a new person, but
We all began to kind of agree about what we thought was happening in this play.
The father is her father. I mean, you know.
And then you begin really exploring and experimenting with that big question of, we know what it is, but what is it really?
Morgan's awesome. Morgan knows what she is doing. This show is so close to her, and she has really given us a piece of her heart. You can tell that she loves this show and loves this message and loves this story.
I couldn't be happier than I am right this minute with this room, this cast, this table.
We've got short scenes. Each of those scenes is serving a purpose in the play, and we're really trying to figure out what it is, how is that particular scene in service of this big picture that we're creating. And then we got on our feet to kind of play around and explore with it.
We've been in rehearsal for about a week and a half.
Yeah, it's not until it kind of gets on its feet that it starts to come alive usually. And we just got the set yesterday, so we were just able to start playing with some levels and a little bit more blocking.
Basically, I'll just draft all of the stuff and then give it to the technical director, and then he'll make technical drawings out of it, and we'll build it all in the shop.
Hold me back, Joe. Hold me back.
I go into the lab for like 2 hours twice a week. It's a credit that you have to graduate, but I chose the shop.
As a scenic designer who also works in the shop, it's kind of like I get to supervise my design as it's being built, you know, make a little bit better than what I was thinking. He'll be like, oh yeah, no problem, and then fix it right there in front of me, and it's okay, great.
My dad owns a construction business, so it's kind of been something that I've done forever.
So, washer, then on the leg.
It was actually really fun to work on the set that I later got to play on and like to do things on. It just adds a whole new layer having a set. Having it evolve around you, having it build around you as the process goes on is a really cool thing. I would come into rehearsal being like, I know what we built today, like I know it's gonna be here today and I can't wait to play on this.
With the build crew hard at work, the lighting designer hangs the lights and adds color and texture.
Will you give me a second and I'll cut it? Okay, here. There's this stuff that we call gel because back in not ancient days, but back in the old days, they were actually made from like gelatin. You can kind of guess, okay, I want this to be warm, amber, pink. Okay, I want this to be cool. Okay, blue, how blue? Very blue. Saturate blue or like light blue? Do I want it to be barely blue?
Some zoom cuts though, they're the big ends.
That kind of knowing inherently what's going to look good and not look good kind of comes with experience. I gave it to you. I didn't hear you. I wasn't listening. It's really just a piece of plastic that you slip into the front of the light to make it a different color.
I'm bringing 30 in. Can I get a spot? Third electric flying in. Locked off.
It's basically one of the reasons that I love theater so much is it's always a team effort. Everybody's cooperating on the same thing. We're all, we all help to build the set. We all help each other with lighting. We all help each other with sound.
Take a
Shush, Emily.
snuck in.
Yeah, sandbag.
gobo is a piece of metal that's varies in sizes, and it's basically just a sheet of metal that's cut in a circle, and then within that sheet of metal is shapes cut out of it to make texture.
Voila! Yes, I am.
I am really big about texture. There's a lot of texture in this show. You know, everyday life, you don't have a circle of light that's like following you or focused throughout the world. It's just there, and there are things that cast shadows, and that's really what the gobos are for.
This is the lighting table. Sorry. Clearly. Sorry. I know it's not our usual garbage can.
So the scenic painter is the person who I will give my watercolor, acrylic, or marker renderings, and then she'll put all that together and understand, like, okay, it takes 6 colors to get to this correct color in a spatter on the stage, and she'll just kind of look through it and plan everything out. She planned out the whole floor, getting the floor all together to paint. For this show, you know, she was like on top of it. They would be pumping out carpentry projects and give them to her, but she would be finishing it faster than they would be giving it. So, you know, she'd have to go to carpentry sometimes, and then it's all painted and it goes up on stage. So she ultimately creates everything on the stage. It's really between lights and painting. It's like they make this. I just put it on paper.
Everyone has to work together to get ready for Tech Weekend. Over a period of weeks, the build crew constructs and implements the set design.
So the purpose of Tech Week is to pull all of the designers, all of the collaborators into one room as you build the play basically from scratch.
Okay, anything else you may need?
Tech Week is really stressful. It's the first time that you're putting all of these things together. So you've been like rehearsing the show and rehearsing the like acting portion of it, right? And blocking, but then when you throw on top all of these technical elements, the lighting, the sound, set, costume changes, it gets really hectic and things go wrong a lot, more often than not.
Actors, can we go back to, that's a very particular finger. I'm in charge of, not really everything, but kind of everything.
Morgan, would we like to see that transition again?
All of the designers give their cues to the stage manager, who collects them in a big binder called a prompt book.
We might only get through 1 or 2 pages in an hour, depending on how complicated the cueing is.
Light cue 65, follow spot 3.
Working through the show bit by bit, the design team and director pinpoint how they want the timing of light and sound cues to play out.
A letter for you on your wedding day. There is no choice of any importance in life but the choosing of a beloved.
Hold, please.
Hold,
please. Okay, Bill, whenever you're ready. Stand by light 70.
Also, I'm one of the few dead.
So they've all been working sort of independently, but the designers haven't necessarily employed all of their design yet.
Tech is where I have to focus. I'm on headset, I have to be there, watching, making sure everything's working okay. It's a lot of work.
Somewhere between the drops, I saw falling letters. Each letter.
Hold,
Are they
please.
all just going bad? We got a lot of new equipment. We bought it used. Those strip lights that I'm using to light the windows, there's an inherent flaw in them.
Which if it isn't, it probably is damaged. Different one.
That's a different one?
Yeah, we hung the one on the bottom 5. What does this mean?
Did you
on
take
a go,
a cue?
or did it was in the middle of?
I think it was on the go. But this is what the other one was doing.
Yeah.
There's a little box that like connects the circuit boards, and apparently it gets corroded or the connection just isn't great, so they start freaking out and strobing.
I don't know.
No problem.
So I was going up to unplug it so that we could continue tech without strobing lights. And it actually is still hanging dead. I just cut it from the show.
The script presents a variety of challenges that the designers must overcome, such as how to build an elevator that rains.
The water on the stage thing is really awesome. I immediately knew once I came up with the idea, it was just like, well, I want that. It's basically a long 100-foot hose that reaches into the paint shop from just a regular sink. And they just flip the switch and then water flies up and then comes right down through this like sponge hose that just shoots water everywhere. On the platform underneath them, we've got this steel mesh floor. So it all just goes through the floor into this like funnel system into a 5-gallon bucket.
Stone. We are all 3 stone.
I had more of a natural elevator design in the beginning, but then the first time we saw it rain, it worked and it was really awesome and we were all excited, but you couldn't really see the rain, so we painted the whole inside of it to be storm clouds. Oh, it's raining. There's the clouds. Rain and clouds. Now the rain like looks perfect inside of it, and Emily got like 6 different lighting angles on it, and it's perfect view of everything rain.
We can do a face first one, but that's a little more dangerous.
We had a fight choreographer come in named Adam Rose, and he taught me basically how to fall.
So let's get up there, and I just want to see where where you actually are standing.
Okay. Outside the window, there's like a platform with a huge mat on it. And he showed me a couple different ways. The first one was like trying to make it look like I tripped. And I fell on my back.
Yeah.
Which was it didn't hurt, but it was like very jarring. So he showed me the other way, which is basically I literally just jump.
We just have to do a little bit of acting with it, so it looks more like a surprise fall as opposed to a jump. But I think the look of it. I'll try it.
And with the quick change, like we wanted something that was non-jarring and shocking.
My nipples are like can cut glass right now. This stuff is so cold.
The makeup designer tests a few different techniques and, with some help, lands on the decision to use an airbrush and crumpled paper to get the texture that she wants.
Literally, there's a toy chest in the basement.
What is he doing with all that stuff?
The show has 3 nights of dress rehearsal before an audience arrives. This is the last chance for the director to give notes to the actors and designers in order to fine-tune the performance before opening night.
The nasty, interesting man wig was kind of something like that for this show. I pulled this really ratty, nasty wig that I turned into this Russell Brand looking thing. Morgan cut it a couple of times. One time during makeup trials, she cut it. She didn't want it to be distracted. I convinced her to look at it in context. She still found it a bit distracting. Just a giant wig on stage with a man underneath it. So finally we just cut it, and now he's in a fedora.
Part of the reason theater is such a unique art form is its ephemeral existence.
Opening night is sort of a mixed blessing. It's sort of the end of the process of the conversation with your actors and your designers.
Opening night is kind of like the passing of the torch.
So this one I'm super nervous for tonight because there's 9 movers. So anything could go wrong.
I do want one eventually, so I can just...
So it's perfect. The show's done, and we were kind of done 2 days ago, besides maybe a little paint note here or there.
My only fear is that because I think almost every opening we've been to, we've had to run up to the board to fix something.
I've got a few little sound notes left to do, but it's just tiny little tweaks, and then we are golden. We are ready to open.
All right, everyone, we're at places.
This is the show now.
It feels really good to be able to be done and not have to worry about anything before opening night. It's awesome.
There's something that you're losing on opening night, and you have to sort of step aside, you have to step back and watch the play. You're cheering for them and you're excited for them, but it's their play now.
After all the shows are over, the only thing left is memories.